Not much else can be as demoralizing, painful, or sometimes dangerous as making navigational errors on a backcountry trip. And over the years, I have accumulated quite the list of experiences that either I have been personally a part of or have been closely related to the crew that went through those experiences and consequences of their poor navigational choices. And I thought sharing these stories with you will offer some motivation to put a lot of effort into learning and practicing navigation well before your trip.
Hey, real quick, right before we jump into this video, if you'd do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Also, thank you for subscribing to this channel. If you'd like to be notified of future videos, please hit that bell icon. Have a great day and enjoy this video.
Before we get into these stories that I have about making navigational errors, I just want to point out that I've chosen only to share stories about backpacking with scouts. So these are backpacking trips to Philmont and Colorado. I'm not sharing any stories from, say, Northern Tier, for example. And I'm not sharing any stories from maybe taking a trip with some friends. So these are all scout trips with the crew, backpacking to Philmont, Colorado, things like that. So the first story that I want to share with you is a story from Philmont. Now, I wasn't actually on this crew. I was very closely related to this crew. I helped prepare them and send them to Philmont, but I wasn't actually there. So I got this story when they got back. So on day 2, this crew made a navigational error and ended up walking for about 4 miles in the opposite direction before they realized they had made a mistake. So 4 miles in the wrong direction added almost an entire day's worth of mileage on top of the miles they already had to hike that day. So that was all time and effort spent going the wrong direction, only to have to turn around and come back and then continue hiking their mileage for the day. So there's 2 things to point out here. One, the entire crew just added a whole lot of miles to their trek that were unnecessary, and especially on that day. And point 2, the adults realized early on that the scouts had made a wrong turn, but the adults didn't say anything. And the ranger knew they had taken a wrong turn, but the ranger didn't say anything either. So what can you take away from this? Well, to me personally, I probably would have spoken up and asked the crew if they were sure they're headed the right direction, maybe about a mile or so down the wrong trail, and then use that as a learning opportunity. That's your personal decision. Just saying, I don't really want to walk a whole extra day on top of a day, but I do want to use it as a learning opportunity. And the second point I want you to realize is the ranger didn't say anything. And the ranger knew they were going in the wrong direction. So keep that in mind. The second story I want to share with you is from Philmont in 1995. Now, I was a part of this crew. This was a very strong hiking crew. Against the advisement of myself and the other 2 adult advisors, they chose the longest itinerary that was available for that year at Philmont. And on day 3, I remember this very well. We got to a trail junction and there was some discussion and they took a right instead of a left. I made that decision. I stepped in as an adult too early and we went the wrong way. So oops on me as an adult, and then oops on me for going the wrong way. And we walked for a long way downhill, only to realize that we were walking downhill and we should have been walking on flat ground, which meant that we had to turn around and hike right back up the mountain that we just walked down. And it didn't add maybe more than 2 total miles to our already long day, but those 2 miles were extremely demoralizing. Third story. This was my first backpacking trip in 1988. We went to the Weminuche Wilderness in Colorado. And how memorable was this incident? Well, I still remember this incident and can see it in real time almost 40 years later. So pay attention. I don't want this to happen to you. Well, we were a few days into our trip, and that was about 3 days from a phone, much less help. I remember back then, we didn't have satellite pagers or any other sorts of ways to get an emergency message out other than to physically hike to a phone and then call the police. Okay? It was raining. We were high up in the mountains. And then we came up on a trail junction. One trail went straight. The other trail went to the right. We had maps. We had a compass. And after several minutes, the decision was made that we needed to take the trail to the right and cross a river. And that's what we did. So we prepped up and started across this river, which was very swift. It was knee deep. And the water was so cold, it was painful. It was all snow melt. It literally just melted right there, and it was flowing down this river. And remember, on top of that, it's raining. It's very unpleasant. Now, what happened next wasn't pleasant at all. Now, my good friend, I had a good friend that on this trip. I had a lot of good friends on this trip, but this friend in particular wasn't all that coordinated. Super sweet guy, just wasn't physically that coordinated. And on purpose, the decision was made, and they put him right in front of me when we crossed the river. So the expectation was that I would be able to help him cross the river if needed. And in a split second, we're about halfway across, and in a split second, the literal blink of an eye. So 1 minute he's right in front of me, doing okay, and literally you could blink your eyes, and the next second he is literally not there. Where is he? He fell head face into the river, right in front of me. This cold, cold river. And I remember reaching into the water and grabbing him by the backpack to pull him up out of the water, myself not trying to fall in, balancing on the slippery rocks that were dancing underneath my feet. And I got some help, and we got him out of the water, and we got him to the shore we were crossing across to, and immediately we all knew that my friend was in a serious situation. Why? Why was my friend in a serious situation? I'm being serious. Why was my friend in a serious situation? Well, he was going to have a serious case of hypothermia, and probably to the point that he would end up dying right in front of us if we couldn't get him warm again. Remember, it's cold, it's rainy, he's soaked, everything is soaked. But fortunately for him and for us, we had the knowledge and skills to first of all know that he was going to have a problem with hypothermia before it started showing up, and we had the skills to build a fire in the rain. And we did that. We built a fire in the rain, and we saved his life. We dried all his stuff out, got him warm, and then we kept hiking. So how does this story relate to navigation? Well, the next morning we got up and started hiking to realize that we had made a navigational error. We learned that we didn't have to cross that river at all. Now, and we had to cross the river again. Now, fortunately for us, crossing the river for the second time was uneventful. And I wanted to share this story because these sorts of things happen. And this was a dangerous situation that we could have avoided if we had just not made a wrong turn. So a couple of takeaways here. First, besides the navigational error, we knew my friend was about to be hypothermic. So that's first aid training right then and there. There's no manual to look at. That's just acquired knowledge to know that we needed to act and act fast. Second, we had the skills and experience to build a fire in the pouring rain. We had all that experience because back in the day, we cooked almost every meal with an actual campfire. So we built fires in the summer heat. We built fires in the middle of winter. We built fires in the howling wind. We built fires with wet wood, and we built fires in the rain. To us on campouts, if we couldn't build a fire, we weren't going to eat. So we had a lot of motivation to be able to build a fire, and we got really good at it. So let me ask you a question. How many fires has your crew built in really odd circumstances? Could your crew build a fire in the pouring rain and howling wind when someone's life is on the line? Let that sink in for a second. Most of us nowadays don't have nearly that much experience in building fires, and that can actually save someone's life. And believe me, I will never, ever, ever forget almost losing my friend's life that afternoon. It's been almost 40 years and I still remember it. I have vivid memories of that afternoon. Okay, my fourth story. This would be Philmont, 1989. This was essentially the same crew that I was just talking about that was in Colorado the year before in 1988. This story begins on top of Baldy Mountain. Just after we summited, we decided that we were going to go hike to French Henry. Okay. Now there are trails to French Henry from the top of Baldy Mountain. But our crew decided that we were going to, well, first of all, I need to mention that Baldy was covered in clouds. There was no view. You couldn't see more than maybe 50 yards or so. And the crew decided, well, first of all, we couldn't find the trail. The trails are very hard to find on top of Baldy in that situation, where you can't see very far. And the crew decided that we would travel cross country from the top of Baldy down to French Henry so that we could pan for gold. So the maps came out along with the compass. And the only thing we had going for us was at least we knew we were on top of Baldy. To be realistic, we should have just hiked back to Baldy Town and then gone from there. But we didn't do that. So off we went. We chose a direction. This is our compass line, and down the north face of Baldy we went. Was there a trail? No. This is all cross country, and down we went. Now, the top of Baldy has no landmarks. It's all loose, and it's all loose talus. Talus is it's kind of sharp, angular rock, granite usually. It's very loose, slides out from underneath you. And down we went, into the clouds, slipping all the way. And then we got down into the trees. Now, do you think we were closely following that compass needle as we slipped down the face of Baldy? No. And so now we're in the trees. We have no trail, nothing to go by, no landmarks, can't see anything. It's cloudy. It was actually kind of dark now because it was cloudy. And then it starts raining, of course. So what do? Well, we realized we didn't know where we were. So we huddled up and decided that we needed to continue traveling downhill and hopefully run across a road or a trail or a creek or something. And to our luck, we came across one of the mining roads there in Baldy. And that's at least where we made a good decision. And we took the road to the right, which should have and did take us back to Baldy Town. I should also mention this was also the afternoon where we almost got struck by lightning. So I guess a couple of takeaways. In that situation, we should have just hiked back down the way we came to Baldy Town and then gone from there. There's no way we were going to be able to accurately navigate across country from the top of Baldy to French Henry on a compass heading. Not going to happen. All right, my fifth story. In 2020, we took a crew to Colorado, and on the morning of day 2, we made a navigational error. And the scouts kept walking straight when they should have had their eyes opened and realized 2 things. One, they kept walking straight and crossed over logs and limbs placed over the trail, which is a universal sign this trail's closed, or at least the wrong trail. But they didn't realize that and just kept walking. And the second issue was the scouts should have been helping out our navigator and pointed out that the trail took a hard right behind them where those tree branches were. And it took the scouts about a half an hour to figure out they had made an error and we needed to turn around. Then about an hour later, after being on the right trail again, they took another wrong turn. Again, crossing over some small limbs placed on the trail. And about 1 mile down that trail, they realized they had made a mistake. And after a brief discussion, the crew leader wisely decided that we needed to walk back down the wrong trail that we were on rather than try to hike overland to the correct trail. And I'm not kidding, it took us 2 days to make up that lost time that morning. You see, those 2 wrong turns set us behind, and then we couldn't get over a pass before the afternoon thunderstorm set in. So we had to sit in the rain on the wrong side of the pass on the trail for about 2-3 hours before we could move on. And that cumulatively set us behind in getting to the campsite that we needed to get to that night. And then that made our next day longer, and we didn't make that campsite either, which made the 4th day longer. But at least on day 4, we were able to make it to the campsite we needed. So it took us forever to make up the consequences of those 2 minor wrong turns on day 2. My 6th story. Well, this is Philmont 2022. Now, we sent 2 crews to Philmont this summer. This story is about the crew that I was on. And so what navigational stories and wrong turns did we make in 2022? Well, that's the story. The scouts didn't make a single wrong turn, not one. When it came to a trail junction, they went through a series of steps to make sure they knew where we were. They were, after all, keeping up with where we were on the map pretty closely. And then we got to a trail junction. They determined which route to take. And when they made their decision and started walking down their chosen trail, they were, again, keeping up with where they were on the map the whole time. And so when the actual trail that we were on matched the expected terrain features and environment, what they expected to see on the map, they knew we were headed down the correct path. So, for example, one time on day 3, it was either go straight or go left. Left went uphill, straight, we didn't know where straight went. They looked at the map, they said, hey, yes, we are right here. Multiple people confirmed that, yes, we are right here on the map. We should go, based off the compass, we should go left, uphill. So they went left and uphill. They knew on the map we should be going up a set of switchbacks. If we were on the right path, then guess what? We were going up a set of switchbacks. So they knew we were on the right path. So this crew didn't hike any unnecessary miles on their entire trek. And that's the story. It can be done. And it can be done well. So to close, navigational errors will cause, at a minimum, some pain and lost time. However, those seemingly small lapses in judgment can also set up a much more dangerous situation. A situation that can have serious consequences. Now, navigational errors are avoidable. When you're prepping for your trips, you need to put some serious and good faith effort into practicing navigation. If someone in the crew thinks that the crew is headed in the wrong direction, then they should speak up. Hey, I think we're going the wrong direction. Do you mind if we stop for a minute and make sure that we're going the right way? It would be better to stand there for a few minutes and make sure you're going the right way before walking down a trail for a mile or two or more before you realize you made a mistake. And if you're the crew advisor and you know the kids have made a wrong turn, use your judgment and then just speak up at some point when you're comfortable and say, hey, are we sure we're going the right direction? And then go from there. Now, how long you decide to wait till you ask that question, well, that depends. And I've also learned to try really hard to let the kids make the decision. So there's a balance between letting the kids make mistakes and learning from those mistakes and putting in the pain that everyone has to pay for those mistakes. And that wraps up this video. I hope you have a blessed day.
Hey, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you'd like to support this channel, remember, please subscribe to this channel. Tell your friends about it. Thanks for hitting that like button. Everything here is free. I want to give back to the community. I want to give to you everything here for free. I've been out in the outdoors for a long, long time, and it's great that I can be able to give all this information to you. That is what's most important to me. If you would like to give back, I do have a GoFundMe page set up, and you can follow the link. And if you'd like to, if you're a youth with your parents' support, I would gladly accept your donations. Thank you and have a blessed day.